So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
I'm one with the first is with me.
I've seen your daily routine, you're not busy.
This is where the fun begins.
I find that answer vague and unconvincing.
We're fine. We're all fine here now, thank you. How are you?
We would be honored if you would join us. Bitch.
Welcome to the Cantina Cabana. We are podcasting to you from the wretched hive of scum and villainy where the bantha milk is always blue, inviting you guys to tag along as we explore that galaxy far, far away. My name is James, and today I'm here with my co-host Tommy. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing fine. I've been looking forward to doing this since we've pretty much known each other, so I'm excited. I'm very excited to be here right now. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sure, I'm sure that we'll be talking to each other a lot over the course of however long this show goes on. But basically, we just wanted to get together and do sort of a Star Wars themed podcast talking about all kinds of things, about the series itself, the current goings on of it, things that we're excited to see, just a wide range of topics dealing with Star Wars. And Tommy and I have actually been really good friends for a while. We're actually related in a way, and one of the things we first got onto, when we first met, was talking about Star Wars and our love for it, and this show is sort of the product of that.
Yeah, we so you kind of mentioned to it. We're brothers-in-law. So our wives are sisters to each other. So we've known each other for going on about 2 years now, and immediately kind of knew that we were both Star Wars fanatics and have talked for the last couple months and years about starting a podcast, and just decided one day to do it. And it's this is my, I say this is my New Year's resolution. I've already completed it. I've started the podcast with you, so I'm good for the rest of the 11 months. So are you one of those guys that do New Year's resolutions, or?
Yeah, I do a few of them. I do a few of them every now and then. Can't say I stick to them, but
I'm about to say, it doesn't even sound like you've stuck to it. We're not even out of January yet.
Yeah. But hey, we started it. That's the most important thing. And to add on to your resolution, I think mine is going to be that we continue it throughout the rest of the year.
Okay. Yeah.
That'll be
by the time the Untitled episode 9 rolls out, we will still be broadcasting.
Right, and hopefully, longer after that. So this episode, going to serve two primary purposes. One thing is to sort of give everyone an explanation of what the show is. Bear in mind that both of us have very limited experience in podcasting, so these first few episodes are probably going to be a little awkward, probably going to be a lot of, fumbling our way through things just as we figure out the format of the show and figure out sort of what we're comfortable with, how we're able to bounce things off of each other. We also wanted to feel very conversational, and I know this is something that you and I have talked about a lot, in the past couple months, that it's better when these shows come off as more of a conversation between two people.
Yeah, because it's kind of like mining. You want to dig for gold, and it's you don't want to just glance by stuff, but stick into a structure. You want to go for those gold nuggets, and a lot of times it takes some deep conversations to get to. So yeah, like how James was saying, we don't know necessarily how we're going to structure it per se, but we intend to do a wide array, at least at first, to finally get our groove locked in. We're kind of playing chess in the dark with how we wanted to get it structured, but just, yeah, James was saying, just kind of, just keep out for us, and we just want to make a good podcast for viewers to listen to talk about Star Wars just about as much as we do. So.
Yeah, and if at any point anybody who's out there listening to this, you have suggestions, comments, if you want to tell us you really like this thing or you really hate this thing, or you want to tell us to go shove the show up our asses, that's fine. You can just let us know. We'll definitely read it. We'll definitely read your comments, and we will take certain things into consideration.
Yeah, that's my main kind of kind of thing is I want to like help build a community of Star Wars fans to talk about things, and that's going to rely on our viewers in the future. So hopefully, so y'all would be able to be a part of the conversation just as much moving forward.
Right. And another thing that's really important to stress is that there's a lot of, I guess you could say that Star Wars right now, and especially the fan base, is very back and forth. There seems to be this huge
divisive is the word of 2018.
There seems to be this huge divide between multiple sides of the Star Wars fan base, and you've got one side telling the other that they're idiots who don't understand the complexity of Episode 8, and then you've got the people who say that Episode 8 is a total travesty to filmmaking. Blah blah blah. Both sides going at it all the time. Now, while
very political, very social.
Yes. And while Tommy and I both have our own feelings on Episode 8 that we will certainly go into at some point throughout the course of this show existing, this is not going to be a show that is directed at this is the things that Lucasfilm's doing wrong politically or socially. You're not going to get political or social conversations here. It's more of just talking about Star Wars itself and what we think the future is. Now, granted, there probably will be times where those sort of topics will bleed in because it's hard to avoid them. But like I said, this is not a show dedicated to tearing down Lucasfilm.
We're going to stick to happy landings, as Obi-Wan Kenobi says. Another happy landing. Yeah, like James said, we're going to try to keep it positive. I mean, yeah, we have opinions and they will bleed into, but we're not out to chastise or we're here to criticize. I mean, don't get us wrong. We're Star Wars fans. We're going to be critics. No one hates Star Wars as much as Star Wars fans is kind of the thing between. So, but we're going to just keep it positive. I mean, we can talk about things. It's a very open. We're not here to negatively, impact or pursue. We're just no negativity. Happy landings, as Obi-Wan Kenobi says.
Yeah. Yeah.
So James, so you got more to cover, but just, go ahead and tell a little bit about what we have kind of in mind with the podcast. What kind of content that we're going to be bringing up moving forward.
So like I said before, it's kind of a wide range of different things. So of course, there's going to be a lot of speculation and discussions about things that are coming out, regarding new films, new books, new comics, video games, yada yada yada. So you'll get to hear some different takes on how we feel about these things. Little bit of reporting on the news. I wouldn't say that that's going to be a central focus because, like I said before, this isn't so much a lecture type show. It's more of a conversation type show. Like, hey, this thing's happening in Star Wars, and let's talk about that. And let's just
news is going to come and go, and if it's worthy to bring up, we're gonna sit there and talk about it one day. It just kind of depends on how that news is brought about and when and what's going on that week. News will be available, but we're not on the front lines breaking news or anything like that. We're just here to talk about it.
Right. And you can also expect things like theories, speculations, discussions, stuff like that. Trailer reviews, title discussions whenever we get that title.
Yeah, this was 2 years ago. This week was when we got the title release for Last Jedi. So I would imagine, we're kind of all eyeballs on the Super Bowl right now for the trailer, but I would imagine that title would drop maybe before the trailer. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about it whenever. We're going to talk about it whenever it happens.
Right. And I definitely think we'll be seeing that title pretty soon. But then real quick, one important thing to note is that this is more of a bi-weekly show. So you can really only expect probably 2 episodes a month, mainly because both Tommy and I have a lot of responsibilities outside of doing this. And it's one of those things where it's going to be it would be really difficult for us to get together every single week and talk about Star Wars and things that are going on for an hour at a time. So I would definitely say you could probably expect 1 to 2 episodes a month. 1, if we're just so slammed with stuff going on that it's impossible to meet up. 2, if everything's just going perfectly smooth and all the stars align. No pun intended there. And
Yeah, can you kind of break down what those 2 episodes a month would be, kind of structured wise, I guess?
yeah. So one thing you can expect is sort of a topic, kind of like what we're going to be doing later on, which is sort of sorry about that. Things are going on with my throat right now. But anyway,
It's that blue bantha milk.
yeah, apparently I'm drinking way too much. So what you can kind of expect is that every month there will be a topic sort of designed around something that we come up with. Maybe it's, hey, let's talk about what's coming out throughout the rest of this year, or let's talk about when we're going to get Star Wars Episode 9 title, or hey, if a trailer drops, let's talk about that. And then the other part of the other episode that would come out that month might be something like, hey, let's review one of the older movies. So we'd sit here and talk for 45 minutes to an hour about each movie.
In chronological order, right?
Yeah, we're going to try and do chronological order.
Because that's the way you're supposed to watch Star Wars, right?
No, that's wrong. And we're not going to argue about this right now. Although that's probably a topic at some point, is talking about
that alone will be its own.
Yeah, what is the quote unquote correct order to watch Star Wars? So
that alone will be its own episode for sure.
Yeah. These sort of topics and discussions are the kind of things that you can expect. But on top of that, we'll also have, like I said before, a little bit of news talking about things that are the breaking news and things that are coming out. And of course, with the episodes being 2 a month, a lot of that news is probably going to be coupled together into each episode. So don't expect, if the episode 9 trailer or title drops tomorrow, don't expect to hear anything from us for probably 2 weeks. I know that sucks, but that's just the way.
But that'll give us time to let it marinate and review it. And yeah, like obviously speculation was a bit of an issue last year or 2 years ago, but it'll give us time to talk about it and see what we like, see what we don't like, and see where it's going. Yeah, you said reviewing the older films. I'm really looking forward to that, because even though we've talked Star Wars, for the past 2 years, we haven't really had conversations about the prequels and the OT and the old stuff. So I'm really looking forward to going back in time with you and with our listeners to talk about things and because I'm very excited to hear what you have to say about the prequels and all the other films. Other than, because we've talked to death about the new Disney films. Part of also with how we want our shows to go once we do establish viewerships is you can follow us on Twitter. That's at the Cantina Cabana, and we will start taking maybe Twitter questions at the end, or maybe make an episode of just Twitter question Q&A type of things. We'll have special segments as well. If depending on how the week is, we might do like a top 10. I've always wanted to do a top 10 with James with rankings of the movies. I guess it'd be a top 11 because there's 11 films out. 12 if you count the Clone Wars animated, but we're not gonna.
No one counts that.
I would call it an honorable mention, but there's nothing honorable.
No, that movie's awful.
To mention at all. I mean,
that movie was a theatrically released pilot. That's all that movie was.
I've actually started watching the Clone Wars. That was kind of another New Year's resolution. I'm in season 3 right now, and there's a couple of duds in there, but they're not bad. They're actually pretty good.
You may have you than me.
You haven't? No.
No, I've gotten. I think the furthest I got was like late season 2.
Okay. Well, that'll be another discussion. But
yeah.
I understand. But so special segments like that. Who's got the coolest lightsaber? Who's how do you introduce your kids to Star Wars? That's a topic I want to kind of dive into. But yeah, that'll be kind of what our show basically encompasses. Is we'll have segments here and there. We'll have talk, discussion, news, maybe even some trivia one day if we decide to see who's better at knowing Star Wars, which I know that's definitely not James, because
no, definitely not me.
Just because. But we might have episodes and shows like that throughout going forward. So yeah.
Right. Okay. So, like I said, this episode has 2 primary purposes. One, to just kind of give a brief explanation of what the show is, but also, and I guess the primary point is to talk about what's happening in 2019, and not just 2019, but everything that's supposedly going to be happening beyond then. So 2019, even though we don't have much information about 9 right now, there's still a lot of really interesting things that are happening this year in terms of Star Wars. So do you want to go ahead and start us off with that?
Yeah, we'll put episode 9 on the back burner of this because that's going to be where all the meat's at for the year 2009. But just to kick things off in the TV sphere of things, I know that you probably aren't as involved or excited about it, but I'm going to at least talk about it. That Star Wars Resistance show. It's the animated show premiered on Disney XD. They just dropped. Well, actually, I'd say they just dropped a trailer. They actually just started streaming. I think they're 1 or 2 episodes in by now. I saw the trailer for it, and I mean, it is what it is. It's a kid centric show. I think it's about pilots on training pilots, and it takes place right up before episode 7. The trailer actually had General Hux in it. Did you see the trailer for that Resistance?
To this day, I have not watched that trailer. I saw like the promotional images, of the animation style. I saw, the images that they released of the cast, the characters like in the animation, and I just said, nope, no, I don't.
Not interested. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I'll keep up with it, but I'm not actively watching it nor intend to. But yeah, that's rolling out right now on Disney XD. I think we're kind of in this interesting lull period until the Disney Plus streaming service kicks into gear later on this year. I think in the summer, if I'm not mistaken. So we're kind of in this awkward lull, waiting on episode 9, and just kind of don't have anything else to go off of. But that's all other than what I'm about to get into. Just said the Disney Plus streaming service is set to kick off, obviously with The Mandalore coming into play. It's going to be the first live-action Star Wars television show directed by Jon Favreau.
Now, this is something I'm really, really, really excited for. Like, I can't wait for this. I will be subscribing to Disney Plus. I know that Disney gets a lot of flack, and some of it's earned, sure. But I'm totally on board with the Disney Plus streaming service, and I hope to God that they revive some of those Marvel Netflix shows. But I will definitely be there for Mandalorian.
Yeah, because you're a huge Daredevil, and what was the other one?
Yes, Daredevil. I mean, I like the Punisher.
Punisher, that one. Okay.
Yeah, Punisher's pretty good. I haven't finished season 2 yet, but Daredevil and Punisher, great. Love them both, and it really sucks what's happening over there. I understand, but I really hope that Disney in some way brings those characters back.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Like I said, Jon Favreau's set up. He's got, at least we know, 1 season confirmed, $100 million per episode. Filming began in October 2018, so I guess they are, for Christmas, Jon Favreau tweeted out a picture of IG-88, famous bounty hunter, of course.
Well, I think he actually confirmed that wasn't IG-88. It was the same type of robot, but it was a different kind. I saw it somewhere, like last week. I was just it was on the Reddit, like the subreddit, the Star Wars subreddit, and someone said something about Favreau said it wasn't IG-88 specifically, but it's the same type of robot.
Droid. Yeah, okay, I got you. Well, I didn't know that then. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, I'm to be honest, I haven't followed the Mandalore. I don't really know much about him. I know that Boba Fett's technically not a Mandalorian because he's a clone. I'm watching Clone Wars right now for the first time, so I'm just kind of getting introduced to the Mandalore. I know it has a huge following in the Star Wars culture. So I am excited that it is new and different, that it does take place. It's another story that's going to take place after episode 6. So it's in that sweet spot of unexplored territory, and it's going to have a lot to do with the New Republic, because I think I read the description. It's just a lone rogue bounty hunter, and the New Republic. It's really the only kind of description we got.
Yeah. Even though I'm excited to see something take place in that timeline, it really sucks that it's in line with Lucasfilm's new canon, because the person who wrote pretty much everything that happens between 6 and 7 was Chuck Wendig. And I don't know if you've read the Aftermath books, but
I heard they weren't as
they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. I don't know what qualifications he had to get that, but yeah, not very good story. So it kind of sucks that Mandalorian's going to have to bend to fit whatever he decided. Hopefully that it's so far removed away from any of the events in his book.
If you look up the description on Wikipedia, it says it's on the vast outer rim of the New Republic. So I don't know how involved Aftermath Chuck Wendig was, because I'm not much. I don't read too well. I don't read so much. I do have a couple of copy books, and we'll get into books here in a little bit. But yeah, I stick to the movies, stick to the shows. But I am excited nonetheless. I will be. Bob Iger and the Mouse House will be getting my subscription the second that thing drops. So I am looking forward to it. I think I gather you are too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talent behind that show. I know that they've got like Bryce Dallas Howard is directing in one of the episodes, along with Taika Waititi, who directed Thor Ragnarok. So
Thor, yep.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what that show ends up being. I'm excited to see, what tone it goes for. I know that Favreau is a really great director and writer. So I'm really hoping that in terms of Star Wars as visual media, in the film or TV format, that's definitely the thing I'm most excited for of this year. I doubt it's going to come out alongside the launch of that Disney service, because most streaming services have some sort of free trial, and I find it almost impossible that Disney's going to launch that streaming service with a possible free trial. Now, it's possible they may not even have a free trial, and then The Mandalorian would launch along with the service itself.
You're saying they don't want to blow their load.
Like they don't want to turn the service on and say, hey, you can come get a free 30 days, and then everybody jumps in and immediately watches Mandalorian and then doesn't get a subscription.
Well, they might only, like if they do 10 episodes, they might only release the first 5, for the first little bit, and wait a couple months to release the next 5. Who knows? So
they could do that. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited though.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how many people, because there is a lot of Disney content on Netflix and other streaming services. It's going to be interesting to see kind of who, I wouldn't say abandoned ships of Netflix, but who, like how that's going to carry over, because that's going to be a major power struggle money wise with the streaming service moving forward. Moving on, other things, I guess, in the streaming TV kind of sphere is Clone Wars Season 7, # Clone Wars saved. That was announced last San Diego Comic-Con, the infamous Lost Season 7, Dave Filoni's brainchild. They weren't able, for whatever reason back then, not able to complete the Clone Wars saga. I know you really don't care that much about the Clone Wars, but I know you care about the story. Like you kind of I don't know, shift through it a little bit best you can. But did you see the trailer for it that they dropped last year?
I did. So my thing about Clone Wars is that I like it. The episodes that I've seen, most of them, the episodes where it was fully focused on like Jar Jar doing something. No, obviously I'm not really a big fan of that, but I enjoy most of the episodes of what I've seen. I like a lot of what that show did. I like that it kind of embraced some of the weirder aspects of Star Wars. It doesn't feel so straightforward. Yeah, it's definitely aimed at kids. And even though that is what Star Wars was always intended to be from George Lucas, it still is. That's something that's hard to accept as a 24-year-old man. Like, it's hard to watch something that I've grown up with and say, hey, this is not really meant for me. This is for kids.
But you can accept it, though. And
I can accept it. And I think that Clone Wars definitely had some bright spots. I'm not particularly excited for Season 7 just because I haven't seen all of the other seasons.
Right. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as well. I've jumped around Clone Wars. Like, I've already seen Yoda encountering Darth Bane on the Sith planet. I've jumped around and hopped just because I've heard about certain things, so I've pinpointed and found them. But for the first time this year, watching them chronologically, and so far it's been pretty well. There's been a couple of duds, like I said, but yeah, I saw the trailer last year, and I was one of those people that were like, Ahsoka Tano, like Anakin has a Padawan, this is stupid. But I really do like Ahsoka. She's grown on me, to say the least.
Yeah, and there's sort of it's like a picture guide that some people have created that outlines all the episodes you should watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the big arcs and the things that are most important from Clone Wars. And I want to just go by that, but it's one of those things where I just can't. Like I can't enjoy those arcs by themselves. I feel like I'm missing something, even if I'm not. Even if the only story that you need to understand those arcs are there within those arcs, I still don't feel really invested in it. So I have to watch every episode in order.
Well, there's even a crazy, like, they're not. If you look at them, season 1 and then go episode 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not how it's supposed to be watched, because it is all scattered throughout there. There's an official way to watch them if you want to watch them chronologically, and it's not.
Oh yeah. I've heard
it's really weird because I'm not keeping track, like with a pen and the paper. So I have the list on my phone, but it's like, which one did I watch? Oh man, I got to go back and jump and do that, and it kind of turns into a headache after a bit. But hopefully season 7, I mean, it'll be pretty straightforward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know what it is with Star Wars and being, sequentially out of order. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah. Tell me about it.
But so yeah, I'm kind of interested if that'll lead right. I'm talking about right up to episode 3 when Grievous, goes in and captures Palpatine, and that's what kicks off episode 3 with Anakin and Obi-Wan flying above Coruscant.
Yeah.
That'll be exciting to look at.
I don't know if you've ever seen this, but back whenever the prequels were actually coming out, back when Clone Wars, had just come out, there was a Cartoon Network animated Clone Wars show.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, and it was only like 2 seasons, and I think it was made by the same guy who did Samurai Jack. So it was that same animation style.
I love Samurai Jack.
That show, like the Star Wars Clone Wars show, that was absolutely incredible. And you can actually find the entire thing on YouTube if you just look it up, and somebody has like one supercut of every episode. And that one actually ended right as Anakin and Obi-Wan are getting in their ships to go save the Chancellor, and
I know, and that's where Anakin gets a scar on his face is in that show, actually.
Yeah, and he has
and Mace Windu chokes out Grievous, and that's why Grievous has like a coughing problem.
Yes. So if any of you out there have if any of you have not seen that show, please go watch it. It's phenomenal. It's really, really, really great.
Yeah. So besides the Clone Wars. Now, I don't think this is going to be premiering in 2019, but I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it. The Cassian Andor series that Bob Iger announced back in November 2018.
Man, that was back in November when he announced that?
Yeah, he just ran, Uncle Bob, I call him Bobby I. He just had a conference call one day. He's like, oh yeah, Cassian Andor, he's next in line. But like I said, I don't think it's going to premiere on the service. There's too much going on in 2019, and plus, what's his name? Diego Luna. He's still currently filming Narcos, so I doubt that they would have time to put that in production and have it available. But that's something to think about. We haven't talked about it. Is that a good move on them for doing Cassian Andor as the next? I guess it would be the next live action TV show. Are you good with that?
It depends. I think that in order for me to get excited about Cassian Andor, and I really like Rogue One. Now, I know that you feel the same way, that Rogue One is probably it is the best of the Disney movies.
Agreed.
I think that the biggest problem with Rogue One is the character development. Now, some of them are pretty good, but Cassian Andor was a character that I was really excited about going into the movie, and I think that I was most disappointed about him when I left.
Yeah, he doesn't really. I mean, he does have that. He kind of comes off as a badass. I love that first shot of him, taking out his own informant.
Yeah,
instantly, brought me on board. I'm like, this guy, like, Disney's not messing around. They're going dark. They're doing shady stuff, and that's exactly what I wanted. But yeah, he only has that little arc kind of at the end where he kind of turns to Jen. He's like, or K2 says, I'll be there for you. Cassian said I had to. But other than that, you don't really get much from him other than You know that he was in this fight since he was 6 years old. There's a novel somewhere that, believe it or not, his parents are actually separatists. Did you already did you know that?
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool stuff to dive into. But yeah, go on with what you were saying.
So I will get. I mean, I'm excited to see it just because I want to know more about that character because I feel like we didn't get a whole lot from him in Rogue One. But what would make me go absolutely over the moon for this show is if it was Cassian Andor and K2SO. Like,
yeah, hell yeah. Give me K2SO all day.
If it was a, I wouldn't go as far to say like a buddy cop type show because I don't want it to be like a comedy. But if it was centered around those two characters, or at least like the majority of the show was focused on those two characters, oh, absolutely, I'm all down for that. If the first couple episodes was Cassian by himself, and then eventually we meet up with K2. Absolutely, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You could sprinkle in so many characters into that because that's the early rise of the rebellion, so to speak. You can have Mon Mothma, the young, I forget her name. Her name's escaping me. You have Mon Mothma back into that. You can have Jimmy Smits, who plays Leia's adopted father.
Bail Organa.
I don't know why I forgot of that.
Yeah.
Could you even have the guys from Rebels in there? Maybe.
No, got it. I mean, maybe you could. It would just be kind of weird to have them be live action when everybody's so used to them being animated.
I don't think so. I mean, you could have even Ahsoka in there. I mean, honestly, we got to get a little bit more ironed out with the timeline. But this kind of, with the live action shows coming out, it makes me wonder. This is just an idea. You can do how many seasons you want with the Mandalorian, with Cassian later on, but what if Disney decided to just do one season of the Mandalorian, and that's that one season of Cassian Andor, and then that leads to doing one season, single character storylines. So that kind of leads me to I don't want to, this leads me to the Obi-Wan Kenobi question. What if you, instead of doing a 2-hour movie of Obi-Wan, and you kind of have to cram all this into 2 hours. What if you did a 10-episode series of Ewan McGregor coming back as Obi-Wan? Would you like that, or would you rather have a 2-hour film?
I think that in terms of, if you were to ask me because here's the thing, with a movie, you're not going to get as much character development. Everything's going to be kind of cut down to that 2 to 2.5 hours, whereas a 10 episode, every episode's an hour long. That's 10 hours of story and development. Mm-hmm. But I think that with a television series, especially if it's based on something like Obi-Wan being on the Tatooine desert, there's so much, there's so many opportunities to go wrong and really mess up. And I think that certain stories are more fitted for that 2 to 2.5 hour timeline, like an Obi-Wan movie, which I'm convinced we're never going to get it, to be completely honest with you. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
I'm on the same page, but I mean, it'd be such a missed opportunity if Disney did not. I mean, if they can't hear the fan, because I'm not speaking for every fan, but I know that at least 85% of the fan base wants an Obi-Wan Ewan McGregor movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they would be retarded. I mean, they would be completely just stupid if they didn't jump on it.
Yeah. But back to the Cassian thing. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Like I said, if it's Cassian and K2, I'm all for it. I think that certain shows like The Mandalorian. Now, of course, I haven't seen Mandalorian. I don't know anything about it, so I don't know if Favreau wrote it as a complete story in just 10 episodes. I don't know. I hope that Mandalorian, if it's good, is a show that they'll continue on with. Cassian, I really only see that being one season.
Yeah, there's only so much you could really do. Plus, I'm tired of being in between episodes 3 and episode 4. Like, I'm ready to jump out of that time frame. As much as I'm excited about Cassian, and K2, have to have K2SO. As long as that's fine. But I'm ready to jump out of that 19-year, because I think we filled it up just about as there's no more room, basically, with everything going on.
Yeah, and it really is one of those things, and I think this is probably a big complaint that a lot of people do have about Star Wars, the films, and I definitely agree with it, is that Star Wars always feels as if it's kind of funneled into this conflict between a force that represents the Empire and then a force that represents the Republic. Mm-hmm. And it just, I don't know, man. That's the biggest problem with Disney wanting to do this sort of Marvel approach with their movies, is that Star Wars isn't as, I guess you could say, flexible as Marvel, like when it comes to a Marvel Cinematic Universe, because you can have Doctor Strange come out, and it's this completely wacky type of movie, and then in the same year you could release Captain America Civil War, which is a much more grounded type of film.
Militaristic and serious kind of. Yeah.
But Star Wars, it always kind of comes down to there's these two military factions going against it with a few third parties along the way kind of getting involved, even if they don't want to be. So I think that when it comes to these Star Wars shows and these Star Wars series, we need to get away from that time period, because of the entire Star Wars canon, I would say that time between 3 and 4 is when those military ideals and those focal points were at the highest. That was the only thing that anybody in the galaxy was ever thinking or talking about. Right. Was this war that's going on between the Empire and the Republic, or the Rebels, the Republic. I'm even getting the Republic mixed up with Resistance because they're so
there was still a Republic there, but it was very very simmered down.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that Cassian Andor show if K2 is in it, but it's just that time period is starting to drag things down now. That time period has almost become like a negative part of things. So oh great, we're still doing that again. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're making Star Wars small. It's kind of my thing, and Star Wars is supposed to, it's a whole galaxy, and we've only really explored 60 years really. We've only had from episode 1 to episode now coming up on 9. It's only been less than 60 years that we're kind of playing. The sandbox is just so much bigger than that, and that's where, future talking with the writers for Game of Thrones, they haven't confirmed it, but we're all assuming that they're going to go, I hope, 1,000 years in the past and do like a Knights of Old Republic kind of storyline where we can get out of the Skywalker sandbox, so to speak.
Yeah. All right, so what's the next thing for 2019?
We kind of talked about it. We're not book nerds per se, but we do kind of follow the story. We'll hear about it. So just to kind of give a quick rundown of the books coming out in 2019. We have The Queen's Shadow. It's going to be a young adult novel by E.K. Johnson, the writer that did the Ahsoka novel.
Is that one about Padme?
Yeah, Queen's Shadow.
Okay.
So that's coming out March 5th. It's going to be her story transitioning from a queen to the senator. So obviously that's going to be between episode 1 and 2. I've always been curious about how did Padme, like, she was a queen, right? So I don't know how monarchy works in the Star Warsy, but how do you go from being a queen one day and then being a senator the next? I know it's probably answered somewhere, but
I think it's like she was both from the beginning, in that she's queen on her home world of Naboo. But whenever she had to leave that planet to go handle political issues, she was a senator. She's a representative of Naboo.
But why is she no longer queen? Is it something you get elected to, or
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I'm sure there's an answer, but that's always kind of bugged me. Is like she's a queen in episode 1, but then she's like kind of demoted to a senator in episode 2 and 3. So
yeah, maybe there's like one line that Lucas just had in there that explains it. So I don't know.
It might be. It would definitely probably be explained in this book. So hey, maybe I need to go pick it up, and I'll know. Another book coming out. When is that coming out? Master and Apprentice. It's going to be by Claudia Gray, who has done Bloodline with Princess Leia and Lost Stars. It's going to be the story of Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So obviously this is pre-episode 1. That book I'm a little bit more excited about.
That's one that I've heard of. I've heard that title, and I remember hearing about it whenever they announced it, and that's one that I might have to look into.
Yeah, because that to me it goes into what we haven't really had is kind of like more about the Jedi, and obviously we haven't. Has there ever been anything pre Episode 1 that's official?
No,
Canon?
not in the Disney canon. As far as I know, no, we have not seen anything that heavily went into what happens pre Episode 1.
Yeah, other than mentions in novels and stuff like the Sith have been destroyed for a millennia now. Like we haven't had any concrete pre-episode 1 material that I'm aware of, that we're aware of. So that might be a really cool book because that'll give us more kind of into the Jedi Council. You know, what was there before the Clone Wars? Kind of what was their deal? You know, pre-episode 1.
Yeah,
and I heard you get Qui-Gon back, so that's cool.
Yeah, and I heard that Claudia Gray. I heard that the one she wrote, Lost Stars. I heard that was really good.
Yeah, everyone I've
heard about it.
Everyone that I listen to and talk to, they say that that's their favorite Star Wars Disney canonized novel. So another one coming out. It's kind of a weird title. It's called Alphabet Squadron by Alexander Freed. It's basically going to have an X-wing, Y-wing, A-wing, B-wing, Alphabet Squadron. So that comes out June 4th. It's basically, if I'm not mistaken, it's post Episode 6, and they're just all together, squadron hunting down Imperial remnants.
Now, Alexander Freed, he did the novelization for The Last Jedi. I haven't read that, but I know he did that.
Okay, very cool. That's the one. I've read the snippet, but Episode 8 novelization starts out with like a vision of Luke Skywalker still on Tatooine and married and stuff. Have you heard that?
I've heard about that. I haven't read it, but I've heard about it.
I read the little synopsis or the sampling of it, but I thought that was interesting. And it has Han Solo's funeral little memorial scene in there as well.
Man, things like that would have been great in the movie. Sorry.
Moving on to the next book.
To turn into that kind of discussion, but
Moving on, yeah. Thrawn Treason by Timothy Zahn, of course, is coming out July 23rd.
Okay. Thrawn. Just hang on, Thrawn.
Thrawn.
I got to talk about Thrawn for just a second.
He's the 4th member of the Blue Man Group.
Thrawn is hands down the greatest villain in any Star Wars media that has not appeared in a movie. Now, I know some people will argue Darth Revan from the Old Republic. Yeah. But Thrawn is the greatest villain in this universe that has not been in a movie. And it is a absolute travesty that he was not in the Disney new movies. I will hold that to this day that is a total travesty. The original Thrawn trilogy is phenomenal, and I highly suggest you read it if you can find them. Just the way that character is written, the way that he approaches conflict is amazing.
He's methodical.
Yes, yeah. Like, you have no idea. It's just incredible. Just an incredible character, and it really amazing the way he's written. And I know
I've enjoyed him because I binge watched Rebels when it was airing, and so I've known about Thrawn, and it was a joy and a treat for me to watch Thrawn. I don't know if you've seen Rebels. Do you watch Rebels? Did you?
I've seen a few episodes here and there. I haven't seen anything that had Thrawn in it.
From what I've gathered, they didn't really. Thrawn kind of didn't really get all the way to his maximum potential. Is kind of what I've understood, but it still, nevertheless, was awesome to watch him in Rebels.
Yeah, and I was in the middle of reading the original Thrawn trilogy when those episodes came out, so I was sort of so wrapped up in the original portrayal of him that I didn't really care about what was happening in Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Now
the original expanded expanded universe 1990s novels. Yeah,
the original episode 7, 8, 9. That's what they were. They were touted as the original episode 7, 8, 9. But I know that the guy who's writing these current Thrawn novels, that's the same guy who created.
Same guy. Yep, Timothy Zahn.
And I have the first book that he's written in this new canon, but I have not read it.
Is the first one with Anakin on the cover, or is that the second one? No, that's
the second one. He's been pumping those out. Like, the one with Anakin and Vader on the cover just came out last year, 2018, and then he's already got a new one coming out now. So he's been pumping these things out. I haven't read them, the new versions of them, just because I'm really worried about how that character is going to be portrayed now, especially because of the absolute perfect presentation of him originally. But I would definitely recommend, if you can find those books, please read them. Do yourself a favor, read them. They're amazing.
Yeah, well, I'd suggest you, like, I would like to read them as well. But I would suggest, since it seems like you're a Thrawn fanboy, to sit down and watch Rebels. The episodes that he's in, they're really good.
If I can make it past season 1, I'll get to that point, because season 1 is so hard to watch.
Yeah, but season 2 is so good, especially the ending of it. It is literally the best thing. Like the last episode, the last 2 episodes, because they're an hour long each, is really, really good. And then even episode or seasons 3, 4 kind of it's hit or miss, but season 3 is really good. But yeah, season 2 is by far, I think, the best out of all. There's only 4. So that's coming out July 23rd. It's set before the finale of Rebels, and director Krennic's going to be in it, from what I gathered as well. So that's pretty cool. Right, I like old Krennic.
Crossing over characters, that's cool.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll be bitching about what was rightfully his or something. I don't know.
Who knows? Well, I mean, I would assume that it's prior to the Death Star existing. So, because so.
So moving on, obviously there's going to be comics coming out, but we here on the Cantina Cabana, we don't read them comics. Seriously, but if something interesting pops up, we're sure going to talk about it. Did you? I'm sure you did. The final Vader comic run that they had in about a month or 2 ago, with essentially all but confirming Vader's fatherly parenthood was they basically confirmed the most popular theory that Palpatine basically influenced the Force to create Anakin.
I heard about that. I have not read any of the Star Wars comics. I actually tried to read Marvel's Star Wars, which was back when Disney first got it, and I think it was prior to Episode 7 came out. They did sort of this is what happened after Episode 4 or something like that. And I don't know, it was hard to get into it. Didn't really care for it. I like comic books a lot. I like reading them. I enjoy quite a lot of them, but I don't know, it feels like with Star Wars comic books, it's just all of these stories that are focused around one specific character, and it doesn't really feel like any of those stories matter. Out of all of them, I definitely would like to read the Darth Vader ones, just because that's my favorite character.
The imagery, I saw it online. I saw the pictures of it after it came out. The imagery of it looked really fascinating, because it's basically the Vader has like a vision. He's trying to unlock something, and he has a vision. And you see Palpatine behind Shmi Skywalker, and there's like a little circular motion around her pregnant belly, and it all but, even though it's a vision, it pretty much confirms. I always kind of just assumed that that's how Anakin came to be, and it was like I wasn't shocked at all whenever I heard and saw about this, because I always just kind of assumed that's how Anakin came to be.
Yeah, same here. It just seems like the logical explanation for where he came from.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I want to get into those comics, but there's just so many, and it feels
a lot.
Yeah. And so, just to quickly go back to the whole canon thing, is that Disney, when they bought Star Wars and they reset the whole canon, it's amazing to me how they did it, supposedly because it was a little too complicated. It was hard for anybody to get started in any of that stuff, and they wanted to be free to create new stories. The problem, though, is that in the 6 years since they bought Lucasfilm, they have pumped out just constant pieces of content and media that it's become just as confusing now of what to read, what is important. So much to the point where the movies are now relying on you to go read this extra stuff.
Right. That's where I didn't like Solo's ending, with Darth Maul. It's like, if you did not follow canon at all and you just assumed Darth Maul died in Episode 1, I bet you left that theater confused as hell. What the hell is going? It's just like, yeah, we're not canon cops. Me and James aren't, but I absolutely agree with you that there's it's a little much, to be keeping up with. It's a lot of work as a Star Wars fan in 2019.
Yeah, yeah. I want to read some of these comics, but it's one of those things where it's like, dude, is it worth it? Is it worth the time to dig through a Darth Maul comic and a Princess Leia comic and 3 variants of a Chewbacca comic and a C-3PO comic? I don't care, to be completely honest with you, and I know that that's weird coming from a Star Wars fan, but it's just that it's all these little tiny stories that ultimately don't really matter.
How did C-3PO get his red arm? Find out on next comic edition. Yeah,
and that was one of those things that in the movie it's just there. Like, oh, he's just got a red arm now.
He doesn't at the last shot of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna point attention to this red arm he has, and then hey, 6 months from now, a comic's gonna come out. And now we're gonna explain everything to you. It feels like there's just this dependency between, oh, you can't understand every facet of the movies because we made the movies with all of these little things purposefully not explained so that we could sell you more stuff later. And that just
I have a decent. I think it's because, and we're not trying to knock it, but I think it's because the powers that be, Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm. I think because George Lucas is not the man anymore, he's not in charge. Those people view Star Wars as a product.
Yeah,
and it's strictly as a product, and I'm not. There's nothing wrong, because at the end of the day, it is about how much money are you going to get. But if you only just look at it as a product, how can I sell merchandise? If I put that into the movie and explain it in a book, then maybe my book sells. So it's like just focus on the creativeness and just how. That's kind of the main problem that we have with the sequel trilogy is the creative structure or lack of structure that's kind of going on. Like, that's how I view episode 7 and 8. They're 2 standalone movies with the same characters. Is kind of how I view episode 7 and 8, because there's no creative flow, baton handing off to them. Yeah. In my opinion, and we'll get into that a little bit further, down the line with talking about it. But just glancing through it.
And I agree with what you're saying, that it is a business. At the end of the day, it's about how much money can you pull in from all of these individual pieces of media. And once again, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So I'm just kind of like throwing it out there that in the future, if there seems to be no interest about the comics or the books from us, that is kind of my viewpoint as to why. There are certain books and certain comics that I will definitely pick up if they interest me enough, but I don't want to sort of force myself to read every bit of content that comes out just because it's part of Star Wars.
Yeah, be bogged down in the canon and trying to like shift your way through everything. And
because when they started rebuilding this canon to be whatever they wanted it to be, and they were pumping books out like every quarter, like 2 or 3 books every single quarter. I tried to read every single one of them. Because I wanted to understand every bit of the new canon. I wanted to track down all the comic books, wanted to have those. I wanted to understand every single piece of it. And it got to a point where, and I think it was probably around when I was reading the book that was based on Tarkin, where I just lost interest in everything Star Wars. I was like, this is not interesting. This is not fun anymore. I've
it's
now
kind of like doing homework.
Yeah, consuming Star Wars has now become like a chore, and
which some people like, and more power to you. If you want to soak it up like a dry sponge, then go for it. But we're not.
If you enjoy it, if you have fun with it, if you can, be on a binge of Star Wars books and comics, and you're still just soaking it up, great, more power to you.
Yep.
Yeah, just more power to you.
So moving away from the pen and paper and the books and the comics, we're video games. Now, I know that there's been a recent development, to say the least, in dealings with EA and Lucasfilm and whatnot. I don't really know what's going on. I know that you're a little bit more uppity up. I only have a PlayStation 3. I'll just be straightforward with y'all. I'm not a gamer. My PlayStation 3 is literally unplugged on the closet. I have the Force Unleashed games, but I pull it down to play Guitar Hero 3 whenever friends come over. That's how exciting I am about video games. So
Yeah. Okay. This is another one of those things that I'm probably going to go on, and there's going to be a lot of things that are not necessarily fully related to Star Wars that I'm going to be bringing in here, so just bear with me.
Because the floor is yours.
Yeah, this is something I'm really, 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 really passionate about. So I love video games, very much so. Play them a little bit too much. Usually if I'm not working or doing any sort of thing related to work,
you got the Switch, the Cube, the box, the stations, you got it all.
Yeah, I got something for pretty much every need. And above all that, ever since I was a little kid, I have loved Star Wars video games. When it comes, when we're talking Super Star Wars on the Super Nintendo, Star Wars, the one on the N64, I can't even remember the name of it, but just
like Rogue something, wasn't it?
Yeah, or no, Shadows of the Empire. That's what it was.
Okay. I remember playing the X-Wing TIE Fighter
joystick
on the. Yeah, Windows 98, baby! Shout out.
Yeah, all of those, Force Unleashed, Lego Star Wars. I love all of it. Star Wars video games has always been a thing that I have just obsessed over as a child, and even nowadays. And I remember back in either 2012 or 2013 when Disney announced that the Star Wars license was going to Electronic Arts, and it was going to be this exclusive deal for I think 10 years.
It's up in 2023. Yep.
Yeah. Initially, I was like, cool. EA makes some pretty cool. They publish some pretty cool games. I'm excited. But I was not fully aware of the sort of business practices that they tend to inject into all of their video games. And after that was when the Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2 fiasco started. And I know you didn't play either of these.
I played. I convinced my cousin who lived with me to purchase Battlefront 2, and we played the hell out of it that weekend. Beat the story but I am aware of the like with the loot crating. Basically, it was child gambling where you had to earn X amount of credits, and it was kind of unfair. And people were like, "Man, it's going to take me a week to build up my character levels." I'm aware of the negative backlash to it. Yes.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. Now, don't get me wrong, when it comes to Battlefront 2 and Battlefront 1, I really enjoy playing them.
Did you enjoy the story of Battlefront 2?
No, I thought it was terrible. No,
yeah,
that was something I hated.
I thought it was not. I mean, it was short, but I thought because Star Wars is canon now. That's like a thing. I thought for what they had to do, all the little Battle of Endor, and I thought the storyline was pretty well. It was quick, it was short, but I enjoyed it.
I hated that storyline because it was marketed as we finally get to play things from the perspective of someone who is on the Empire side. And on top of that, there was a demo that came out for the game. I think you could play it. It came out like a week prior to the release, and it had a demo of the story mode. And it was like, play the first 3 missions of this story campaign, whatever. And the crazy thing is that I remember getting that demo and playing it, and the first 3 missions were the only missions in the entire story mode that were from the perspective of the Empire. So even in the demo, they falsely represented what that story mode was going to be like. And at the end of that demo, the main character says something about, the Republic will finally pay for what they've done, blah, blah, blah. Just that kind of generic speech, stuff like that.
Iden Versio.
Yeah. And then that got me super excited. I was like, yeah, this story campaign feels a little generic in the way you play it. It does feel as if it's just the multiplayer components, but in a linear story. And then the full thing came out, and what a shock it was, I guess you could say, that in the actual story mode, after that mission is where the main character just suddenly turns to the Republic and becomes a good guy. And the whole thing changes, and it just becomes a generic...
because the Empire was blasting on our home planet with that secret Empire backup plan thing.
Yeah, whatever it was. But it was such a letdown of a story mode, for me anyways, just because there was a lot of hype going in, because I want to see something in the Star Wars universe where we get to view things from the bad guy's perspective, just once,
Okay.
And I thought we were finally going to have that. But that's not even half of that game's real problem with, the whole loot box controversy and things like that, where the game was basically just a vehicle for EA to pump cash out of people.
More downloadable content and
Yeah, I mean, things such as locking Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker behind this ridiculous amount of credits that you had to either hope to God you could get in a loot box or pay for.
Pay $20 and bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, and if you didn't want to pay that kind of cash on top of the $60 or more that
as DJ says, blip bloppity bloop.
Yeah. If you didn't want to fork over that money straight up, it would take probably around 20 hours to unlock each of those characters. 20 hours of just grinding through the multiplayer, like just playing match after match after match, regardless of whether you did well or not. See, most games, if you do really well, you'll earn a little bit more progression than the other guy. Battlefront 2 was designed in a way to where everyone gained the same amount of experience and credits per match. And it was awful. I mean, it was just truly awful. Now, like I said before, I had a fun time playing it simply because, for me, a lot of video games I play of that nature where it's just the same kind of mindless stuff you're doing. I just like to listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos while playing. And with Battlefront 2, that was what I did.
Just on face value, you enjoyed it for what it was on face value.
Yeah, I could accept it as this really scummy video game that I wasn't going to give any more money to. But when I was just playing it for what it was, I had a good time. But ever since then, and that's about a little over a year and a half, things have just gone so downhill with EA having that license. They were funding a video game that was going to be like a linear, story-driven experience, sort of in the vein of the Uncharted video games.
Yeah, like Uncharted. Yeah, I've heard it. Like I said, I'm not a gamer, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And that one was shaping up to be something really, really, really awesome and cool. And they canceled it because they couldn't find a way to monetize it after launch. So basically, they couldn't find a way to put loot boxes and things like that into it, like they did with Battlefront 2. Because, of course, that would compromise a single-player, story-driven video game. And so they decided to cancel it, and they shut down the studio that was working on it and decided to retool the game to be a open world sort of service type of game where it's built on these sort of microtransaction type of purchases. And just last week, they announced that game was now canceled once again. And that they were wanting
did EA announce that it was canceling it, or did Lucasfilm have a say in that, or what?
No, it was EA, because really Lucasfilm and Disney have no hand in the development of these games. It's all EA. EA is handling everything.
EA owns, so they're just sitting on the license of hey, we have the rights to Star Wars video games, but we're just gonna
pretty much. So
we're gonna sit on it for now.
Yeah, so you've got EA as like this umbrella company. They publish these video games. They have, I think, like 12 or more studios under them. So what they do is, since they have that license, they say, hey, studio number 6, make a Star Wars video game. And we want you to make it like this. Studio 6 says, okay, we'll do that. And then they keep an eye on the progress as it goes through. But the thing is, EA, they canceled this game twice now, basically, and they said that the reason being was because it wasn't progressing fast enough, that they wanted something quick, but they wanted something that would constantly bring players back to keep paying for it. Does that make sense?
Right.
So now they want a video game, a Star Wars video game, that will be quicker to develop, because I think that they want to have it out by fall 2020, which is supposedly when the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox will release. So they want to have it come out in time with the new systems. But on top of that...
let that be like a flagship, okay.
Yeah. So for this year, however, we have a new game coming out called Jedi Fallen Order, which was announced in the summer of last year. And it takes place in that magical time period of between 3 and 4. And it basically follows some group of Jedi who managed to escape Order 66.
And that's coming out, you said, the holiday season, around Christmas time, hopefully?
Yeah, somewhere around October, November.
Okay.
Now, presumably, this is going to be a single-player video game. I'm not sure. We've seen absolutely nothing about it. and really the only information we've gotten is a title and the very, very, very brief synopsis that I just explained.
I think it's pretty interesting premise, because if Jedi, especially like Padawans who escaped Order 66, you got to think they can't use their Jedi power that much, or they're going to be exposed. So I think it's an interesting premise.
Yeah, I think the idea is great. It's just that from how they've presented the game so far, I don't think they have any faith in it whatsoever. Because when they announced it in the summer of last year, it wasn't like they announced it on some stage. They were having a press conference to gaming fans and media, and they had the host of their press conference go out into the crowd, find the lead developer of the game, and say, "Hey, what are you working on with Star Wars?" And he says, "Oh, we're making a game called Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order." And I kid you not, like, you can go look up the video. He's stumbling his way through it because it really felt as if they did not tell him prior to that, "Hey, we're going to have you announce your game." It's almost like they just went up to him and said, "Hey, tell us about it right now."
He's like caught with his pants down.
Yeah. So I don't think that they have any faith in that game whatsoever, and I think that the damage has ultimately been done.
And that's still through EA that's still through EA, right?
Yes, yeah, until 2023. And the problem is that, so Disney also owns Marvel, and Marvel, for the past few years, they were actually in the same sort of situation, but they were owned by Activision. Activision was the sole owner of Marvel in video games. So that's why there was constantly like new Spider-Man games coming out, which were always terrible, or at least for the most part were. That's also in the time where, when the MCU was kind of starting and you'd have a video game based on every Marvel movie as it was coming out. And those games were notorious for having really low quality because they were just pumped out. Well, Marvel eventually wisened up and said, "You know what, we're going to take that back, and we're going to specifically seek out developers who are capable of handling these characters." Mm-hmm. And then they will go to a studio and say, "Hey, do you want to make a game with one of our characters?" That studio says, "Absolutely." And then they go into a deal right there, and that's it. No one owns the property of those characters except for Marvel themselves. And I had thought that Disney would have learned from this, but instead they just signed a deal with EA and said, "Here, you take Star Wars."
Are those Marvel video games canon? Are they official story? Do they follow an official storyline, or is it kind of a free for all?
It's a free for all. They don't apply to the MCU. They are just their own thing, and that's the best part about it, is that developers have the freedom to do what they want. So that's why we got incredible games like Spider-Man for PS4 last year, which is one of the best games of 2018 in my opinion. And I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. And we're also getting an Avengers game from Square Enix, the people who made Final Fantasy, things like that. No, I'm sorry. It's from the people who've been making the new Tomb Raider video games. And we're also getting like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, which is a sequel to a series of Marvel games from the early 2000s that everybody really enjoyed, me included. So I'm hoping that when this deal runs out between Disney and EA, that Disney takes that license back and says, "Okay,
4 years from now."
yeah. We just got to suffer through it a couple more years.
Is there a rumor or talk about Battlefront 3? Is that?
I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah, I think that the damage has been done. I think that even EA themselves is just trying to make it for the next few years till that deal expires. And I would be highly surprised if we get any more Star Wars games other than Jedi Fallen Order and whatever they wanted to have out by 2020. I don't think they're going to put out anything else. I just don't think so.
I could be wrong. Do you still play online Battlefront 2?
No. I know that they've kind of turned it around and they've been releasing new things for it, such as General Grievous and Obi-Wan, and I think they just released Count Dooku with plans to add Anakin Skywalker. So I definitely commend them for sticking by it, but the damage is done and it's too little too late, in my opinion.
I got you. So they've just kind of stuck you with a wound, and you're just like, all right, moving on. Move along.
Yep. They basically carved me up like Obi-Wan did to Anakin.
Yep. Well, moving right along, next little topic, I guess, to brush up on is there's two Star Wars theme parks in development currently as we speak. And last I gather, the Bob Iger, again, old Uncle Bobby I, let it slip that the Star Wars Land Galaxy's Edge will be ready to go, I think, by May, in at least California, anyways, by May of this year. So, yeah, that's going to be very interesting. They released over the holiday break about a 5-minute little, that was the teaser trailer that we thought was going to be episode 9. Little teaser taste of what we're going to get from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It's a fight against the First Order, and you get to ride in the Millennium Falcon. James, when are you planning on going to Galaxy's Edge?
Hopefully it'll be 2020, fall 2020. I want to give it at least a year because I recently went to Disney World earlier in 2018, and I went to the Avatar world, which is still kind of new, and it was chaos. Total chaos. So I want to give it about a year and a half before I go out there. That's my plan anyway.
Yeah, we should all try to funnel our money together. Maybe we could get a room right above they're actually going to have a cantina up there, so maybe, who knows, we'll be big and popular by then. We'll be able to broadcast out of the real actual cantina. I'll be drinking White Russians. Well, I guess it'd be called Blue Russians if we get the Bantha milk.
Yeah, then we could actually say that we're broadcasting from the cantina.
Yeah, for real. So there's really not much to talk about. I guess I did have a question. This is something that has always rubbed me the wrong way ever since I first heard they're doing the theme park. It's not the location, or the planet, the imaginary planet. It's not a mixture of Tatooine and Naboo and Coruscant. It's its own planet that we've never even been on. I can't think of the name of the planet.
Starts with a B.
Yeah. Does that bother you that we don't get to walk the streets of Mos Eisley and
So I was just about to bring this up when we were talking about the theme park. I've heard a rumor that planet's going to be in episode 9.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, but doesn't.
Once again, adding to what we were saying earlier about how it feels as if all these movies are designed just to make you go look or find other content, that it's like, oh, we announced this planet that the theme park is going to be designed for, and then 2 years later, now we've decided that that's going to be in a movie. Well, that's going to be a critical part of episode 9, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, there's probably there's several different ways to look at it. Let the past die, as Kylo says, but who does not? Nobody can tell me that they don't, want to walk in. I'm sure there will be a cantina there, but who doesn't want to walk through Naboo and Tatooine and kind of have it sectionalized instead of being one giant unknown planet to all of us, other than the Millennium Falcon being parked, right there in the middle. It's virtually unknown to us. Now, eventually, we'll probably get to accepting it and be like, yeah, let's go to this planet, and that's it. But I kind of thought it was a little bit of a missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a little off-putting, but it's just one of those things. It doesn't really bother me so much as it's just kind of like I understand that they want it to be sort of this. They want to market it as this new part of the Star Wars galaxy that we've never seen before, and that's cool. I hope that there's a lot to see and a lot to do in that section of the theme park.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go talk shit to some stormtroopers. The second that I walk up in there,
it's a lot of fun. I did that when I went this time.
Yeah, that's right. Because you got to go for your let's say anniversary, your honeymoon. You got to go to Disneyland or Disney World. I've never been to either one, so I always forget which one's which.
Yeah. We got called out by stormtroopers because we were wearing. I was wearing an R2D2 shirt and my wife was wearing a BB-8 shirt. So we got called out by the stormtroopers in front of like a crowd, and they basically talked smack to us. It was really funny.
Awesome.
It was great. It was a lot of fun.
I would totally quit my job to be a stormtrooper.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even I don't do well in the heat, but I would 100% be fine with that.
I would do it for free and just figure out my living arrangements somewhere.
Yeah.
I'd live in the storage compartment of the Millennium Falcon, and just wake up, put on my uniform, and I'd be good to go.
Yeah. So I think all that's left is talking about movies, right?
Yeah, other than Star Wars Celebration, just going to brief on it. That's in Chicago this year. Last 2 years ago, they announced that Star Wars Celebration is going to be every other year. So we didn't have a Star Wars Celebration last year. So, like I said, it's going to be in Chicago. That's taking place April 11th through the 15th. We'll talk more about it as April rolls around to it. I'm looking forward to future film announcements. Maybe they'll tell us what the Game of Thrones writers is officially about. So me and James will be able to talk about that more as the time rolls around. But yeah, we can go ahead and kind of shift back to the obvious of 2019. That's what we're talking about. Episode 9 is at the exact opposite end of the year from where we are right now in January. J.J. Abrams is coming back for his second and final crack at Star Wars.
As far as we know.
Yeah, as far as we know, the movie comes out December 20th. Again, it's the final installment of the sequel trilogy that J.J. Abrams set up in the first place. So, James, obviously a lot has been 2018, as we said in the start of the show, was a divisive year to say the least. But what would be a word that are you excited? Are you concerned? What's your feelings on episode 9?
All of the above, because I don't even know where exactly to begin with 9. I think that in a way I'm excited. In a way, I'm terrified. In a way, I am completely indifferent because, and we'll get more into this as the time goes on, as the months go on. But I do not like episode 8. I think that it is riddled with issues, and I think that above all, it does not feel like the middle of a trilogy. It feels like the conclusion. I
think JJ is going to make a sequel to episode 7 and kind of, I wouldn't say ignore episode 8, but basically episode 8 ends. It other than Snoke dying or Snoke out of the picture, Luke out of the picture, episode 8 it leaves us in the exact same spot we were with 7. I mean, hell, not even a day. 18 hours, plus was all that was spent, and that's my, I know we're supposed to talk about episode 9, but that's my biggest problem with episode 8 is I think Rian Johnson was too fixated on that lightsaber handoff to Luke Skywalker, and so if they would have started it 6 months after the end of episode 7, I think this movie wouldn't be as divisive right now. I think that's its biggest problem was episode 8 was being just butt to butt with episode 7. But I'm more intrigued. I'm not excited. Like I'm not. That's JJ's. That's his job right now is to get me excited for episode 9, and I'm more concerned and intrigued. I'm interested in how they're going to handle the Carrie Fisher situation. We'll talk more about that, but that's kind of a scary, interesting, concerning thing right out of the gate, because no matter how they do it, how they have stock footage from episode 7, that's part of the story. However, and I'm just worried how that's going to fit into the story. I am curious how the Reylo, the Kylo Rey storyline plans out. I'm interested if they're going to bring in a new generation of Jedi. What does this mean for the Skywalker saga? Is this the end all be all of the Skywalkers? So that's kind of my 2 cents looking forward.
I just think that ultimately I still don't know anything about Rey, Finn, Poe. I know little tiny things, but I don't get those characters because they have not, in my opinion, been properly developed. I think that they all feel so one note to me, like they all have one sort of trait that defines them, and that just isn't really enough, because even though Star Wars is kind of geared towards kids, I think that every character that Lucas created, even in the prequels, had a bit more complexity to them, Whereas Ray, Finn, and Poe, and Holdo, and DJ, and every one of these other characters just feels so boring, just bland. Yeah, like that sucks because I want to love Ray, I want to love Finn, I want to love Poe, and in a way, I do love each and every one of them. But I think that the only bit of love I have for them is because it's Star Wars, and
Yeah, it's just
I
the
innately
brand.
love Star Wars. Yeah, even if a movie is terrible, I still love Star Wars. I may not like that particular movie, but I still love Star Wars. I love seeing these planets. I love seeing characters. I love seeing these aliens. I love seeing the ship battles and lightsaber battles or lack thereof. With Episode 8, but it's so hard to sit here, a year and some change away from Episode 8
And be optimistic.
Yeah, it's hard to be optimistic, and more importantly, it's hard to believe that we're 10, 11 months away from Episode 9, and I just don't care. I don't care how it ends. I don't care what the ending of this epic saga is, this saga that started before I was even born. I just don't care how it all ends, and that's something I never thought I'd be saying.
Yeah, I think a lot of the viewers, listening in, which I hope they are, thanks for sticking around listening to us. But yeah, I think a lot of people kind of share that and are kind of honestly kind of scared to say that kind of stuff given the current climate. But I definitely agree and kind of share that same kind of feeling. I wouldn't say I don't care. I'm never going to not care about Star Wars, and I know you aren't either. But it's hard to that emotional investment that we as Star Wars fans will always have. Like, I mean, the older generations than myself, they probably went through this with the prequels and had the same, the internet wasn't really, up and around back then too much, had the same kind of animosity, I guess is the best word to use.
Yeah.
And this is just kind of what we're going through. And if 5 years from now we look back and kind of say, well, that was a mistake and that was a mistake, it's just, if this is rock bottom for Star Wars, then the only place to go is up. Is kind of how I look at it. Yeah. So
and when it comes to like back when the prequels were released, even though the internet was nowhere near as, I guess, ravenous as you could say now,
and prevalent.
Yeah. Back then it was more of like, hey, if you and I were sitting here having a conversation, and I said, hey, I don't really like Episode 1. Your response would probably be, okay. I mean, I kind of liked it, but hey, I understand. Nowadays, it's like, I don't like Episode 8. Well, why the fuck don't you like Episode 8? Just a barrage of insults and attacking people's character. And I mean, that goes both ways. It's both ways. You got people who support the movie who say that kind of thing to the others. It's from both sides, and it sucks because Star Wars is supposed to be something that we all can kind of come together and talk about and love, yet it's almost become just something that isn't fun to talk about anymore because people go cutthroat all the time.
Yeah, well, the internet is a platform for people's opinions, and you know what they say about opinions.
Yeah,
mine's right, and everyone else's mine's right. Y'all suck.
Yeah.
No, but that's the thing is, and there's no consequence, on the internet, unless you like threaten somebody. But that's just the world we live in now. And if I was to give Kathleen Kennedy advice, it would be, it shouldn't be run by the fans. Like the fans shouldn't have to dictate what the story is going to be moving forward. But they need, and I know they are, they need to be aware of the current climate, and just let's start setting a new track record of what works and what doesn't work. Now I am excited. I use the word excited very hesitantly, for obvious reasons, but I am intrigued, I guess is the word. Until this trailer drops, I'm intrigued is kind of where I'm at. I'm intrigued. I like Matt Smith. He's coming in. I know there was rumors about him playing like a young Palpatine.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to be a young Palpatine.
That's interesting, but I don't know. We're going to get a Hobbit in this film. We're going to get Dominic Monaghan, who played Pippin in Lord of the Rings, is going to be in this. So that was old news, and I'm just ready to. Right now, I just want to know what the title is. Do you have any kind of guesses or predictions on the title?
No idea. I've heard a bunch of them. I've heard theories, and I couldn't even pick one that I think could be it. I think that Abrams is gonna. I think that he knows that he's kind of got something to prove because he's never been known to finish things properly.
He's not a closer. He's a
Right.
He's a starter upper. He's a fixer upper.
Right. So I think that he understands that he's got a lot to prove, and I do think that he's going to put his best effort into this. I don't think that, with what we've heard about the sort of tension that came between him and Kennedy during Episode 7's production, I don't think he would have come back for 9 unless he genuinely felt like he had a great way to finish the story.
That or they offered him a shit ton of money.
I mean, that's possible. That's totally possible. So I'm gonna go into it with an open mind, and if the movie's great, the movie's great. I'm not gonna lie about it when we come out. Even if I don't like Episode 8, I'm not gonna go into 9 thinking this is automatically gonna be terrible because it could be great. I mean,
this movie is going to be like Yankees versus Red Sox because you're going to have, the fan base is 50-50 right now. So it's going to be either you're going to like it or you're not. And it's going to be ridiculous. Either way, like hopefully in JJ we trust kind of thing. And that's where I kind of lay my chips on the table. Yeah, 7 was a parallel to Episode 4, Starkiller base, Death Star, orphan on a desert planet kind of thing. But I think given the current climate and the reaction and the backlash, I think that JJ will be able to kind of send us on home, close out episodes 1 through 9. I mean, it'll kind of wrap up episodes 1 through 9 and just kind of make a good Star Wars movie.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go into it with an open mind. We'll see what happens. I hope for the best, but we'll see what happens. That's all I can say. It's just I'm excited for a Star Wars movie, but I'm not excited to see how this story ends. It's more of just I'm excited to see what Abrams does with this immense amount of pressure that's on him.
As of right now, you're just kind of ready to get it over with.
Yeah, I'm ready to get it over with. I'm ready to just have it come out. Let's see it, and then if it's bad, it's bad. If it's great, it's great. Yay.
Yeah. I share the same kind of sentiment, but again, this is J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy's and the creative team. This is their job, is to get us all on board to close this out with Episode 9 coming out December 20th in the holidays. So speaking of closing out, James, I think we are about ready to close out. I don't have a timer in front of me or anything, but
we're running on about an hour and 27 minutes. Now, real quick though. So, we don't have a lot of information about these, but since they are beyond 2019, you briefly mentioned this earlier, but the Benioff and Weiss film or series of films.
Series of films, not trilogy, series of films.
Yeah. What are you thinking about all that?
It needs to be, it needs to be Knights of the Old Republic era. 1,000 years ago minimum. You can adjust it to 800 years and maybe have Yoda in it. I'm kind of back and forth on it. I think it'd be great to have Yoda in a Sith army versus Jedi, early Rule of Two. That time frame is what works. They write for Game of Thrones, so obviously that's where all logic kind of points where they're going to be at. What about you?
Same thing. I think that it being set in the Old Republic is the only logical place that they should be setting it in. And I honestly believe that that's what they're doing. I don't know about Yoda being in it. I think that it would be fine if Yoda was in it for maybe a cameo, like a much younger Yoda.
Maybe he's in the youngling. Wouldn't it be cool, like if he was in the youngling room doing one of the robot things, like how we see him in Episode 2 when Obi-Wan walks in with the map? That would be awesome. I just thought of that. So
yeah, just a very, very brief glimpse at just a very brief glimpse at Yoda. That would be fine. I think that the movie should really explore the Jedi and the Sith, and helping us understand where they all come from.
Have Octu in it, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
from Episode 8.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot that could be done with an Old Republic style film series, especially if they incorporated characters like Revan, some of the other characters. I know
Darth Bane, who is official canon because Yoda does visit him in the Clone Wars season 6. So he is official
right.
canon. Yeah, you know Mark Hamill voiced him too, by the way.
Really?
Fun fact. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I really got about the Benioff and Wise thing. Now the other one, and this is another one that we have no information on, and
The Ryan Johnson trilogy.
yeah, this is even one that's kind of debatable as to whether or not it's even going to happen.
I honestly doubt it. I think Lucasfilm needs to stay as far away from that as possible, and that's not me trying to be a dick, me trying to be a political whatever. It's just I just if I was to bet, I would not bet on that actually happening.
Yeah, I agree.
In the immediate future.
I don't think that trilogy or series of whatever, I don't think that's happening. I think that we'll probably hear some rumors about it for a while, but I just think it's going to be one of those things that Lucasfilm may hope just kind of slips into the background and people forget about.
I think this is what I would hope for. I think at Star Wars Celebration that they bring up Benioff and Weiss, confirm, for us, Knights of the Old Republic kind of thing, and then like 2 days after Star Wars Celebration, just kind of release it to the Hollywood Reporter that the Ryan Johnson trilogy is canceled.
Yeah,
that'd be like the most humane way to do it, I guess, because I know that they were hyping up Episode 8 to be the best, so I understand why they would think that, given social climate of 2018, 2019. I understand why they thought that at the time, why Episode 8 was supposed to be the best, but it's clearly not working, on a flat out basis. I don't really know what else to say other than I wouldn't take it to the bank that that's happening.
And you got to imagine it would be a really tricky situation for them to be in, because if they were to come out and say the Ryan Johnson trilogy is no longer happening, I mean, that's going to start a massive argument on its own, where people are going to be painting Lucasfilm as they're caving in to all the haters, or
like an aftershock
to the man, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's a real damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation.
And we don't want that. Nobody. I'm so sick of the political, social controversy, bullshit that is going on. I just want everyone to be on the same page. I want everyone to love Star Wars, and that's why we decided to create a podcast, because we want to express our love for Star Wars. We're going to talk about those things. We're going to give our opinion, but that's why we're here. It's 2019. We're talking about Star Wars. So you got anything else to say to close out, or what?
Not really. Just as some sort of final closing thoughts on the Ryan Johnson thing, there is this sort of mentality that people have that you're either for Lucasfilm or you're against them in what's happening. And our show couldn't be further from that, because I want nothing more than for you, me, and everyone out there to be super hyped for every Star Wars thing that's coming out. I want to be, at this point, for 7 and even 8, I was already taking off the days that I wanted to go see it at this point in time, 11 months away from the release date.
You already had your tickets purchased, even though they weren't available.
Yeah, I already had my whole weekend plan set aside. I knew where I was going to have dinner. I knew where I was going to eat breakfast. I knew who I was going to meet up with and talk about it. But yeah, it's just kind of gotten to the point where it isn't that way anymore, and I don't like it being that way. It's different, and it's
the hype isn't as now. Granted, we will never get a Episode 7 hype. The hype will never be
no. It'll never be
big as that.
Low.
Yeah, dude, I cried. The Chewie We're Home trailer, I burst into tears. That was by far the best trailer I've ever seen. Ever, hands down, best trailer.
I skipped one of my college classes to watch that trailer because I knew that it was coming out at a certain point and at a certain time that day. So I remember not going
during Celebration. Yeah, I was in bed with my wife Amanda, and she kind of woke up. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning. She kind of woke up and she just looked over, and I was crying because I'd watched it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait till December. Just get here fast. And
yeah.
So yeah, the hype will never be that real again. But let's raise our let's make Star Wars fun again. I'm ready for everyone to be happy about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And not be
Maybe
shitty.
one day we'll get there.
We will. Well, one day we will get to our next episode, which James, what is our next episode? Are we we're going to be reviewing some films?
Since we are approximately 11 months away from Star Wars Episode 9 coming out, the next episode will probably be coming out mid-February, I think, because it's about to be the end of January.
Be a Valentine's Day special.
Yeah, somewhere around there, we are going to review Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
How exciting is that for Valentine's Day? You and your hot bundle of love can cozy up and listen to the Cantina Cabana talking about Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, so we're going to do a full episode that is dedicated to reviewing that movie, unless something happens Episode 9 related, like if a trailer comes out or I wouldn't say if a title comes out, but if a trailer drops out, the only thing that could change the topic of is if a trailer.
The Super Bowl is February 3rd, so that's the only kind of what we got to go off of as of right now.
Yeah, so as of right now, it's going to be a review for Episode 1, and if a trailer for 9 drops, then it'll turn into that. That's what we'll talk about for 45 minutes to an hour. And then
Misa Jar Jar Binks.
Then the next episode will
horny.
Be the Episode 1 review. So we'll definitely be doing a review of every Star Wars movie, except for the Clone Wars animated movie, leading up to the release of Episode 9, just so we kind of have an official video
track record of how we perceive the films. And I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, we haven't really talked too much. Since we've known each other, we've only kind of hit on the Disney new era Star Wars films, and so I'm excited to go back in time and talk about these things. So yeah, Episode 1, I'm looking forward to popping that in my Blu-ray player, turning up my surround sound, and listening to some poopy jokes for 2 hours. So I'm excited for it.
Get to see a pretty decent pod racing scene. So
Do you know I'm going to ruin the pod racing scene for you? If you notice, and I've never noticed this until the last time I watched it, it's only shot from left to right, left to right, left to right. George Lucas, for whatever, how smart he is, he did not decide to turn the camera around and shoot one scene from right to left. It's going to drive you crazy now that I mentioned it.
Oh,
it's only left to right, left to right,
left to right,
left to right. It's going to drive. There's a couple of forward shots, backward shots of the cockpits and all that, but yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. That's.
I just ruined Episode 1 for everybody. Sorry.
Well, that's the plan for the next episode. Like I said, the only way that's going to change is if a trailer drops for 9. Then we'll just shift and just move the Episode 1 review to the next episode. But yeah, that's it for me. I don't have anything else. I would promote my social media, but I don't really have anything. So,
well, yeah, guys, I just want to personally thank y'all if y'all are listening. One day we'll have thousands and millions upon millions of subscribers, but right now, thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter at the Cantina Cabana. You can follow me, Thomas, at RebelScum2187. I know it's a really sick Twitter handle. Follow us, give us a shout out. Hey, leave us a comment, share. Like I said, we're new to this. We're playing chess in the dark with this whole podcasting thing. James has had some experience. I'm still a podcasting virgin, so to speak. James, you popped my podcasting cherry, so to speak.
Weird.
But anyways, yeah, guys, give us some time and we'll be a little bit more professional, I guess. And thanks for listening, and see you around, kid.
See you, everybody.